Hey guys, it's Mrs. Yago again, and this is Chapter 3 of The Darkest Hour. I hope that as you're listening, you are making sure that you're listening for the words that Carolyn Tongue Richmond uses to help us understand the setting. She's made several references to people from the 1940s, like famous singers and things like that, that really help us as the reader understand that this is a time period long ago. So, here we go. Chapter 3, page 22. I flee across the streets of the Maria like the mice hiding in my family's apartment back home, bolting from the Nazis' sharp claws. For the first time since I parachuted into France, I'm grateful for the blackouts that strangle the country. There are no streetlights, no lamplights, not even a beam of moonlight to guide the Germans on my back, and I'll need every shadow I can to shake them off my trail. I dart across Rue de Rivoli, right under the enormous swastika banners that hang 6 stories high, and I turn onto a side street, ducking behind a shuttered boulangerie. That's French for bakery. As I catch my breath, I notice the bread counters inside, long covered in dust. They remind me of the counters at Pascal's, the bakery where my family has worked for over 10 years. 6 days a week, my parents minded the storefront and cash register, while Theo and I prepared baguette dough in the back, kneading and folding to the satisfaction of Mr. Richards, the owner. That was our whole existence for years: homework, bread, and earning pennies that Papa would take from us to buy more wine. The girl I was then couldn't have fathomed what I've become now. I peel off my veil and habit, revealing the street clothes I've worn underneath, and shove them both through a hole in the glass. All the while I keep my ears peeled for the soldiers, but it's another voice that catches up with me instead. "Please, sister, have mercy on me!" Despite the summer warmth, my fingers grow cold. Travers. Tilly warned me that this might happen because the same thing happened to her. Sometimes she'll get a haunted look on her face, and I know that she's thinking about the bomb that she planted in her first target's pied-à-terre. This is something that Covert Ops hasn't trained us for. They may have taught us how to kill and how to do it well, but they never told us how to forget about our victims' last words. But I can't let myself regret what I've done tonight, not after the crimes that Travers committed. What if Theo had been one of those airmen who he betrayed? This is the thought I cling to as I hurry homeward. I follow the map of Paris that I've stored in my mind, crossing over Pont Saint-Michel and entering the city's 6th district, or arrondissement. A left here and a right there, and it isn't long until I reach the bookshop, Shakespeare and Company. I enter through the tucked away side door and lock it fast behind me, stepping into the dusty air. The store has been closed for months, ever since its owner was arrested for handling our illegal leaflets. But the place still buzzes with activity, if you know where to look. Tiptoeing into the Middle Ages section, my fingers nudge aside a book about medieval clothing, too dry a subject for Nazi tastes, and curl around a hidden latch, which allows me to swing the bookcase forward to reveal a tiny room that's lined with banned books. But that's not all this room is hiding. I kick aside a well-worn rug to reveal a wooden hatch underneath. Covert Ops' front door. I knock against the hatch 5 times, our signal that I'm a friendly, and I wait a second before unlocking it and heaving it open. A face stares up at me in the darkness. "Sabine!" I gasp. It's a good thing I'm not holding my pistol because I might have fired off a round. "What are you doing here?" Sabine pops her head out, but doesn't ask me if I'm all right. Candlelight trickles up from the hatch, illuminating her pretty heart-shaped face. Well, pretty is too mild a word for her. Sabine is beautiful through and through, with Hollywood looks and flawless bronze skin. Even though it's the end of the day, there isn't a single black hair askew on her head. She might as well have stepped off the cover of Glamour magazine. "Major Harkin asked me to wait for you," said Sabine in French. "I've been sitting for half an hour." "Don't flip your wig. I'm here now, aren't I?" "Wig," she frowns. "I'm not wearing a wig." "Never mind. It's something we say back home." "I see." She sniffs. I despise when Sabine does that. When I slurp my water, sniff. Or mispronounce French slang, sniff. Or roll my eyes at Major Harkin, sniff, sniff. After what I've gone through tonight, I'm ready to elbow her in that perfectly pointed nose of hers, but Harkin would be livid if I ruined the face of his most prized protege. He tapped her to become one of the first agents of Covert Ops, thanks to her exploits in Paris as part of the homegrown French resistance. Covert Ops may be an American organization, but half of our agents are French-born. Sabine is one of them, half French on her father's side, half Algerian on her mother's, and a thorn in my side in her entirety. As she always does, Sabine gets straight to the point. Did you kill the traitor or not? Give me some room so I can get down. You didn't answer the question. I don't have to. I don't report to you. I squeeze past Sabine and climb down the ladder into our cramped quarters. A flickering candle sconce greets me at the bottom rung, the sole light source in the musty hallway. An old mirror hangs next to the sconce, and I catch a glimpse of myself in it. My hair is a sweaty wreck, and my brown eyes still have a frantic look about them, but I can breathe a little easier now that I'm home. You'd think that Covert Ops agents would live in a glamorous Parisian penthouse with wood-paneled walls and antique rugs, but the Nazis claimed all of those for themselves. So when the bookstore's owner offered her unused basement space to Major Harkin, he said yes and moved right in. This is where he's hung his shingle for over a year, right under the Nazis' noses, and they don't even know it. Frankly, most Americans haven't heard of us either. Covert Operations, and the entire OSS for that matter, was secretly formed under President Roosevelt's orders not long after the breakout of the war. There are over 10 branches within the OSS, from counter-espionage to censorship to covert operations, and we all serve the same mission, beating the Nazis through subversion, propaganda, and espionage. Although Covert Ops is a little different from the others in that we employ solely female agents. Major Harkin has handpicked every trainee, too, but not all have stuck around. Some washed out early, while others got the boot for being too mouthy, but a few have made the cut, like Sabine and a French Jew named Delphine Bernard, who has impeccable smile and even more impeccable aim. Then there's me, I suppose. I'm the first trainee that Major Harkin has taken on in months, and I have no plans on washing out like the others. Sabine leaps down from the ladder, nimble as a Siamese cat. Matilda hasn't yet returned from her assignment. I nod, wishing Tilly had been the one to greet me instead of Sabine. But Tilly's busy trailing our next target, a Madame Favreau, who's suspected of spying on the resistance for her German lover. Where's Major Harkin? I say as Sabine leads me down the hall. Doors flank us on both sides. There's the wardrobe closet that houses our many disguises, and there's the gadget storeroom that contains our most clever weapons, like a gun hidden in a tube of lipstick and a bomb disguised as a hairy black rat. Down the way, there are several bunk rooms as well, enough to accommodate all 10 of our agents if they descend upon headquarters at the same time, but that hasn't happened since I've been in France. They're too busy bombing Nazis' barracks, sniffing out collaborators and taking out said collaborators before reapplying their rouge and sneaking away. When we reach Harkin's office, Sabine gives the door a knock. I've brought Lucienne as you instructed, sir. She opens the door and adds softly to me, a word of advice. I shut the door before she can finish. I'm not interested in any advice she has for me or anything else she has to say. You're late, says Major Harkin, his voice as dry as the bottle of vermouth behind him. His desk is piled high with files and folders obscuring half his face. 3 candlesticks, already burned down halfway, shed a flickering light over his graying hair and his grayer eyes, which seem constantly fixed in a glare, at least where I'm concerned. I decide to speak first. Maybe if I lead with an apology, he'll be in a better mood. I'm sorry for my tardiness, sir. I don't need you to be sorry. I need you to be on time, he says, not looking up from his stack of classified files, each one marked with a different name, Berlin, Propaganda, Wunderwaffe, and so on. There isn't anything personal of his in sight, not a picture of a wife or any memento from home. I hardly know a thing about him aside from the fact that he speaks beautiful French and that he rose up the ranks in the U.S. Army before he got tapped to lead Covert Ops. If he had a personal life before the war, he sure doesn't mention it. I accomplished the mission, I tell him. I took out the target. Major Harkin doesn't even blink. Did you use the knife? I could lie to him. I could tell him that I used the knife, and that was that. But I owe Harkin the truth. There was a slight snag in the plans. I had to use the pistol to finish him off. How many shots did you use? 1? Well, 2. Finally, he looks up. 2? I had to, sir, as a last resort, like you said. Did anyone hear the shots? I drew in a sharp breath. He's not going to like this. There were a few patrols out, but Major Harkin gets up from his chair so fast it topples over behind him. You've waited until now to tell me that? They could have followed you. You know that full well, Blaze. I made sure I lost him. I've witnessed Major Harkin's wrath before, but his face is so purple that I think he might have an aneurysm. All of a sudden, I wonder if he'll demote me instead of promote me, and that makes my stomach twist into a big knot. I can't go back to Baltimore. That's why I was late. I doubled back a few times like you taught me. I lost them before I crossed the scene. Where's Travert's body now? In the river? He fell in after I shot him. He drowned? He shakes his head and stares at the floor. Agent Chevalier! There's a slight pause before Sabine pokes her head into the room. Sir? Make sure the building is secure. Go now, understand? Understood. She heads out the door but glances back at me before it closes behind her. Her eyes linger upon me with pity, as if I'm a spider that she's about to smash with one of her fancy shoes. I look back at Major Harkin and all of my frustration with Sabine gives way under his disappointed stare. I'm sorry, but I took out Trevor like you asked me. I might have gotten a little sloppy, but sloppy isn't the half of it. You had a simple mission, interrogate the witness, then kill him. I did both. Hardly. If he drowned, then the scene killed him, not you. He's dead either way, I offered weakly. A dead body floating down the scene is not what I had in mind when I sent you on this mission. What happened to discretion? He kneads his fingers against his temple. We've already dealt with a Class 3 with your first mission a couple months back. I'd expected much more from you this time around. This isn't a Class 3, though. Not even a 4 or a 5, I want to add, but I know better than to say that. I can't have this, Blaze. On paper, you should be one of the best agents that Covert Ops has to offer. You know the language back to front. You've passed your training with flying colors, but you're not pulling your weight compared to the others. Tilly has worked for 6 months without any mix-ups, and Sabine has a perfectly clean record. I want to tell him that he isn't being fair, that the three of us are so different. But the truth is that he's right. If Tilly and Sabine can pull off their duties, then why can't I? Despite everything I've gone through to get here, even bled through, I don't measure up. Tears pool in my eyes. I can't get kicked out of Covert Ops. I can't stomach returning to my parents' apartment where Papa's drunken ramblings shudder through the walls each night and where Mama never says a word about it. I can't move back into the room that I shared with Theo, staring at his cold and empty bed. When I was little, he'd whisper stories to me whenever our father's yelling grew too loud. Then when we were older, he'd tell me about his plans to run away to California. We'd go together, him, me, and his girlfriend, Ruth. Don't you worry, Luce, he'd say. We'll go somewhere where Papa will never find us.